This video will show you how to replace the front outer tie rod end on a GMC Sierra 2500. This is part of your front steering and suspension located behind your front wheels. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front end of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, if you have a hubcap, we're going to remove that. That can be done using a 22mm socket. After that, we'll remove all 8 of our 22mm lug nuts as well, so we can remove the wheel. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, we have a clear view of our tie rods. In between the outer tie rod end and the inner tie rod end, you're going to find a jam nut. We're going to have to break this free. We're turning it clockwise. We just want to break it free from the outer tie rod end. We'll be using a 22mm wrench. You can also use a 7/8 if necessary. Now that I have that on there, I'm going to tap on the end with a rubber mallet. That helps break it free typically. Once you do have that broken free, we're focusing on the outer tie rod end where it connects to our steering knuckle. We're using a 21mm for our mounting nut. Now if you find when you're attempting to loosen the mounting nut, the tie rod stud spins on you, you can carefully apply upward pressure on the tie rod end, pulling it towards the steering knuckle. While holding pressure, remove that mounting nut. There's that. Just a quick inspection. We're going to start it back on a couple threads. Now we need to break this free. To break this free, you can either tap along the top of the stud. You want to be careful not to cause any damage. Or we can also tap along the steering knuckle itself. We're using a hammer for this. Now on our application, the outer tie rod end is coming out at an angle and it's stuck in here. I'm just going to carefully pry it down and out of place. Now as we start unscrewing the outer tie rod end from the inner tie rod end, I always like to count the amount of turns it takes to remove it. Of course, I'll be taking note of that. 1, 2, and so on. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On my application, I got approximately 25 turns. Your results may vary. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course, we want to make sure we clean and inspect the mounting area, especially the threads that go into the outer tie rod end. So I'm just going to use a wire brush for this. It is your prerogative if you wanted to fully remove your jam nut and fully clean the threads up here as well. Let's apply some anti-seize on the threaded portion of the inner tie rod end right down here where the outer tie rod end will sit. Okay, let's prepare to install our brand new outer tie rod end. We'll line this up with the inner tie rod end. Once you have it so it's started on, we're going to be counting the threads as we install it. We want to make sure we install it the same amount of turns as it took to remove it in the first place. 1, 2, and so on. Now let's get that outer tie rod end into the steering knuckle. It's going to come through from the bottom towards the top. We'll flex it as needed. Slide that up there. Now we're going to continue on with our mounting nut. We'll bottom this out, torque it to 44 foot-pounds. Let's torque this. Now, I did replace my outer tie rod end. I have a different type of mounting nut here. Now, at this point, since our outer tie rod end has a castle nut, we need to make sure that the slots on the castle nut line up with the port on the outer tie rod end. If it's not aligned, continue tightening until the very next slot is. Let's see if this is aligned. Looks like I need to go a little further here. Looks pretty good. Let's see if this slides through. Once you have that slid through, make sure you peen it over so there's no way the outer tie rod end can loosen up on you while you're driving down the road. Let's make our way to the jam nut. To tighten this, we're turning it counterclockwise, drawing it closer to the outer tie rod end. Now I'm going to try to prevent my outer tie rod end from pivoting, so I'm going to hold that with some pliers. Now we can go ahead and snug up that jam nut. Double check to make sure the outer tie rod end looks like it's level towards the ground. It's not twisted in any way. This looks good. The torque for this jam nut would be 55 foot-pounds, assuming you have the tool that can do it. Now it's time to reinstall that wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, start on all 8 of your 22mm lug nuts. We're going to lightly bottom them out. We'll get the wheel safely back down on the ground and then torque each of them to 140 foot-pounds. Now I've got the wheel back on the ground. Let's go ahead and torque each of these lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. If you have a center cover, install that now. We'll get the center cover in place. We're starting on each one of our caps using our 22mm socket here. Just snug them up. Double check to make sure it's secured in place. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our tie rod end. Now at this point, you want to take your vehicle for a road test. You're going to listen for any odd noises and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.